So I read the book. I studied for 2 months. It was April 26, 1992, Stitches, Boston, Mass. Do you ever have a moment in your life where it turns into slow motion? This was that moment for me. I'll always remember the comedian introducing me. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage for the first time, Darren LaCroix. And I came up from this side of the stage. I visibly started shaking. I had my little jokes on note cards. I put them on the bar stool next to me. I had so much anxiety going through my body, I didn't have the wherewithal to pull the hand off the note cards. Did you ever try and read while you're driving? And ironically enough, my very first joke was about Dr. Goddard. And I talked about his rocket, and I said his rocket took off and it went vertically. Those of you playing at home, this is horizontal. So I did one thing, and I said the exact opposite, and at that instant I realized I messed up, and I just said, shoot. Well, all right, it's not a direct quote, but you can fill in the blank. I said, all of a sudden everybody laughed. Why are you laughing? That's not where you're supposed to laugh, but I'll take it. That was the only laugh I got that night. Thank you. As I walked off stage, this man put his arm around my shoulder. He said, "Don't worry, man, it's just your first time." I remember thinking, don't worry, it's just my first time. Did you see what I did? I got a laugh. I am the king of comedy. Why so often do we let other people tell us what success is? See, everyone there that night thought that I bombed. I looked at it differently. I got a laugh. And no one told me I could do it, even though it was a mistake. In that 5 minutes of time, I had one thing that worked. If I could get rid of everything else that didn't and figure out how to reproduce the one thing that did, I could do this. And I've been doing stand-up comedy ever since that night. Folks, that is the mindset that brought me to becoming a champion. That I stopped worrying about how did it go today, and I worried more about 10 years down the road. Now, when I tell people the story of my first time on stage, a lot of people think, well, he's a comedian, he's over-exaggerating, it couldn't have been that bad. Well, guess what? I brought proof. I'm going to show you the most powerful 57 seconds of video you've ever seen. It will feel like an hour. But before I show you this video clip, I want to clear up a couple things right away. Number one, this was 1992. A lot has changed. And number two, I am fully aware that parachute pants are no longer in fashion. So let me take you now to that moment in 1992. Does anyone here live in New England? Yeah. I figured I had to get something to say. Did anybody ever notice that every other small town in New England takes one little small historical fact and makes it the greatest event in the world? Sorry for my voice, like fluctuating a little bit. But a lot of towns are like this. I was doing some research, like places like Lexington, you know, the first revolutionary skirmish happened there. What was his name? I can't even think of his name. Obviously, he was real famous. Eli Whitney was in Westboro, you know, born in Westboro. I was doing some research, and I discovered that the first dentist to use ether actually happened in Charlton, Massachusetts. And an interesting thing about this was he actually experimented himself. You know, nobody else had done this before. And he started with animals, and then he used his own dog. Is it over? How many of you would have been there at that comedy club that night, watched that performance, and walked up to me and said, you know, Darren, if you practice real hard, someday you can win the world championship of public speaking? No, I watch that now, I think, how did I ever go up a second time? So a question for you. If I can go from that to winning the world championship, what can you do? What can you do? And that's not a question about presentation skills. That's a question about anything you want to do in your life. If I can go from that, now I know everyone in this room, no matter what level you're at, is at least that good. So if you're starting out a half a step ahead of me at least, why couldn't you? And what I'd like to talk about is the things that brought me from chump to champ. And what I think is most important and what I learned from my mentors to help me get here, to help shorten your learning curve.